Good evening, everyone, and welcome to day number 11 of the Shift into Purpose Challenge. I am John Mason, better known as Dr. M, the Purpose Disruptor, and I am so glad that you were able to join us for this amazing broadcast. Um, this has been nothing short of transformational for me. First time I've ever done this. First time I've ever done this at this level. First time I am actually with a brand that's mine. First time that this thing is moving forward in ways that I never even saw possible. And when I tell you that I'm just really, really pleased to be here and really pleased to do this, I am. For those who are just joining us, have never joined us before, let me just tell you what's going on. We started with week one going over what this whole shift thing meant. The shift came to me in a way so that I literally could say, okay, what are you actually talking about? What does this mean? And the S basically stands for sitting with yourself in Jesus, carving out a space where you, men, can be about looking at yourselves, figuring out who you are, figuring out what makes you tick, being transparent, not having to lie, seeing yourself for who you actually are in the mirror. The H stands for hearing the Father's voice. When you identify all these things that need to take place, all these things that need transparency, all these things that may need fixing, it's always good to have a comforting voice to say, okay, here's how we're going to do this. Here's how we're going to do that. The I stands for investing in your purpose. This whole thing is about identifying your purpose and walking in it. Once you've identified and walked in your purpose, what I tell you, it's kind of important that you invest in that thing, not just doing it as a side hustle or a get up, but actually moving things so that you are putting your money where your purpose is. The F stands for forgiving others. When I tell you that being being in a state of unforgiveness is something that you don't want to be in, period, point blank. You don't want to be there. You don't want to do it. Because in that state of unforgiveness, the word tells us that you can be turned over to the tormentors. And there are many under the sound of my voice who are being tormented even as we speak. You get no peace, you get no rest. You are tossing and turning. Your mind is always going, always running, always racing. Things are not as you want them to be. There is no life in you because of unforgiveness. And lastly, taking accountability. Taking accountability. When I tell you this is kind of a big thing, specifically for men, we don't do well with accountability. We don't. What we want to do is we want to dip and dive and shuck and jive and do all that. Yeah. But what I'm telling you is so true. When you take accountability, there's nothing between you and what you've done. Hand up, yeah, I did it. Hand up, it's my responsibility. Hand up, it's my issue. I'm the one who did this. So that's shift in a nutshell. And this week is going to be no different. Last week we were dealing with shifting your character. And Darius J of the men's department came in here and just laid it down for 5 nights. And I was just so ridiculously pleased as what he was doing and what we were going to go on. Along with this shift into your purpose, I am so pleased to announce that we have just released the Shift into Purpose journal. And this goes along with this 21-day challenge so that you have the ability to chronicle what you're going through, places to write out what you're getting as you sit with yourself. There are beautiful affirmations morning and evening so that you have things to think about, things to go, where to go, what to do. And more importantly, this journal allows you a very guided path to move from point A to point B to point C and through the things that may have you tangled up a little bit at this point. I don't know whether you saw this or not, but there was this prophetic word that came out, and it says, "Dear builders, let me encourage you, lean in real close. I hear the sound of the abundance of rain." But when Elijah's servant looked, all he saw was a cloud the size of a man's hand. Let this encourage you. The sign may be small, so small others overlook it, but don't despise what seems insignificant. What looks tiny is often loaded with power. It took Elijah's servant 7 trips before he saw even that tiny cloud. But Elijah knew that small cloud was carrying a massive promise. That hand sized cloud wasn't just weather, it was a visible token of an invisible shift. It was the announcement of breakthrough, abundance, and divine outpouring. Don't stop praying. Don't stop believing. Don't stop because others don't see it yet. Small sign equals massive promise. The rain is coming. Get ready. When I read that, I knew that I had to shift everything that I was going to talk about this week. Everything. And in an instant, I pivoted. My goal is to be like water, be fluid. Why? Because this is the type of thing that gains my attention. Uh, our guest this entire week is Pastor Jamal Wright of the Reviving Generations Church. Um, he is he's just awesome, y'all. He is a down to earth brother. He is going to give it to you in a way that you will never forget it. He is going to ensure that you understand what it is that we're trying to do. And for those of y'all who are wondering where we're going, here's where we're going. This whole week, we're going to be talking about shifting your temple. But tonight, we're going to start with why men ignore prophetic warnings. Why do men ignore prophetic warnings? And I'm gonna add him to the stage whether he ready or not. And ready or not, here he come. He'll be back in a second because he's had a very long day. And while we're doing that, let me just go ahead and hit this one. Make sure that you go ahead and like, subscribe, and share this. The more that we know, the more is going to be there. To Chandra, to Starling Gilbert, thank you so much for joining us. I love it. Yeah.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
um, One thing I do need y'all's help on. I cannot do live streams from the page that is set up for Purpose Refined by Fire until I get to 100 folks. I'm at 65. I believe in God that with all these folks on here and the thousands of folks that you've got following you, you can help me get where I need to be. So if you would be so kind, if you would be so kind, go out to your personal page and say, I need y'all to go out to Purpose Refined by Fire, and I need you to go ahead and subscribe to that channel. Let's get this brother over 100 so he can go ahead and do the live streams everywhere he needs to be, specifically on the page that shares this movement's name, I would greatly appreciate it. Prophet Pastor, how you be?
I'd be okay. How about yourself?
Oh, I am so excited. I cannot even tell you how excited I am for this week. When I finally wrap my wrap my arms and my mind around the fact that it really doesn't matter what I put on paper. What matters is, am I listening? And it's kind of hard to tell folks to sit with yourself in Jesus and hear the Father's voice if you're not going to sit with yourself in Jesus and hear the Father's voice. It's a setup. It's a setup from the start.
Yep.
And and as I said, when I read your post this morning, what became so very clear to me was I could not go in the direction that I wanted to go with you because it didn't make any sense. It made no sense whatsoever. So, what I want us to talk about just for a little bit is the prophetic and why men specifically have a difficult time heeding the voice of the Lord. And I got a secondary question for you when you finish with that one.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on your platform. I appreciate you for this moment. That's a loaded question. Um, and I don't think it's just for the sake of what this week is for, we'll say men, but I think it's people overall,
Oh
especially
no, go ahead and make it general. It's fine. Make it
especially in
general.
the place that we're in, uh, the state and the state that the world is in. I think it's just people in general. But men tend to generally, some men, not all, um, struggle with prophetic utterances, right? Um, I'm trying to gather my faculties. I was I was deep in slumber, not prayer, but I was slumbering. Uh, um, but the thing is that because of where we are, right, in the world, and because of how we are built in the framework and all of these other things that go on around us, we have become desensitized to the voice of the Lord, right? Um, and that's one of the spaces that we as a people sit in. It's not, I don't think it's just gender specific or uh, ethnic specific, but we all sit in this space where we struggle with responding to the word of the Lord, right? And one of the main reasons I feel is that we teach people how to do everything else except for receive, right? Especially within the confinements of the church, we have this strong pull to teach something, even if we're teaching something wrong, right? And one of the things that we don't teach well is we don't teach people how to receive or to strive or to live or to fight with or contend with the word that they receive from the Lord. Um, One of the examples that comes to mind is when Lot tells his son-in-laws to be get out of the city because the Lord is going to sweep through. And I believe the scripture said that they laughed and they treated him as a jester, right? They treated him as a fool. And that's one of the things where we are living in today's society now, where, and it's nothing new, where we're the voice of the Lord somehow is now in competition with all these other voices, right?
Mm.
And the thing with Lot's son-in-laws to be, because they hadn't married the girls yet, they were to be married to them. Um, they were in the city, right? And they were around all of these things that were happening in the city. And it's just like putting or taking somebody out of a set neighborhood and placing them into a new neighborhood or trying to get them into that new neighborhood, they can't see the newness because of how they feel and what they've experienced. They become desensitized to uh, the things of hope, for the lack of better words. And this is where I feel like a lot of men struggle, is that, especially us, we're very practical, we're very analytical, and we need principles, right? Um, and when you give some men this concept of what we would consider the word of the Lord, because some of this stuff that people are telling people are, it's really not the word of the Lord, it's their own feelings and emotions. But that's another conversation we can have another day. Um, and this is why another reason that men don't contend or receive what's being said, because it doesn't make sense, right?
Mm.
And I thank God for my pastor, who is um, very intelligent, and she has this way of sharing the word of the Lord, through the wisdom of the Lord and the intelligence of the Lord. And Dr. Mason, another thing that I feel, and we can move on after this, I feel is that it's not the people that's receiving the word, it's the people that's giving the word, right? So I'm gonna stop there because I'm rambling.
You're not rambling at all.
I'm rambling, so I'm gonna stop right there.
This was up earlier, and I'll put it back up again. So, does the word of the Lord demand require a response?
Who asked that question? Oh, that's the question you're asking me.
Of course, of course.
So my question would be, for your question, what do you mean by does it require a response? Because are you asking if the word of the Lord, if it's conditional, or is it unconditional, or is there something that I need to do when I receive that word? Or
The beauty of everything you just named is I would hazard that 75% of the brothers who are listening are probably confused on that very point. So, would you be so kind as
which
to unpack all of that?
which point are you referring to?
Conditional, unconditional, time sensitive, transcendent.
Okay. So again, that goes back to the giver of the word, right? So if I am relaying a message from heaven, right, to a particular individual, to a crowd, to a group of people, so forth and so on, my objective is to be as concise as possible and not add me to the equation. So again, I feel the issue is not the receivers, it's the word givers, right? And that's the thing. Like, you can give this vague or broad word, and everybody's looking like, what am I supposed to do with this? Right. Um, and that is where the issue lies, like with that space of people relaying words that have no God attached to them, but it's all them, right? Because we know now ChatGPT will give you a word of the Lord. Right.
That's the
And that's
truth right there.
and that's the thing, like, is the word of the Lord conditional? There may be some spaces where the Lord shares something that has conditions. um it's just depending on the word that's received. There are some things that the Lord will release in the earth, and there is no condition around it, it's going to happen, right? um but then there are things where the Lord will say, I will do this. If we see it in scripture, I will do this if you do this. If my people, which are called by my name, right? If you would humble yourselves, he gives this conversation in that context of that word. Um, there's a responsibility in for our hands, based on what the Lord is saying. So it just depends on. Again, I'm gonna go back to this, and I wish I had more, but it just depends on who's giving the word, because when you have limited vocabulary, and you are in spaces where you're giving the word based on your limited vocabulary and also the lens that you view the Lord through, it's always going to confuse somebody and have people wondering, like, what am I supposed to do with this?
The reason why I'm going down this trail that seems like it's a slippery slope at best is for two reasons. Number one, I think that meeting God face to face is one of the things that we often are very fearful of. We don't necessarily know that we are ready for that. We don't necessarily know if we are qualified for that. The second part of that, which is almost more intimidating than the first, is it's one thing to meet him. It's another thing when he decides that he wants to sit down and talk to us. Unlike, folks who have identified and accepted their calling, understood their purpose, and, and y'all make it look easy.
What?
Y'all make it look real easy.
What do you mean by y'all make it look easy?
What did I say? I don't stutter. I don't stutter. And I'm
Give
gonna
me,
use
give
you
me,
only because I know what's about to happen.
give me more of that. I need
I,
more.
oh, no problem. No problem.
Come on.
I can get you into a space, and you have been on Mason Mondays, and we're in a space where your fluidity, your ability to navigate what God is saying, folks just sit here and do this because I can't do that.
What do you?
It's not. There are brothers out there who are busting sweat because they got to give greetings at their church this Sunday.
What does that even mean? Like,
That means that they are not comfortable in the presence of God.
I don't think it's them not being comfortable in the presence of God. I think it's more so them not being comfortable with who the Lord calls them. When we live in spaces of comparison and we try to compare ourselves to other people, we tend to fall short. And then when it's time for us to show up, we don't know who to show up as because we don't know who we are. And that's the issue, though. And I
Here
feel
we
like
go.
if we have more
Here we
conversations,
go.
if if we have more conversations around the idea and the topic of finding who you are, like identity classes, like I feel like that should be part of new converts courses. Like let's take this and navigate this thing called life so that you know who you are and you're not comparing yourself to brother Tom, right? Because brother Tom went through something totally different than you went through to find out who he was. So now you can't compare apples to oranges because it's not going to work, and you'll never show up confident in a space when you don't know who you are. Again, like, if we talk just church, right, and we're talking about just the brothers in the church, a lot of them have been told who they are, right? Especially the brothers who come from the street, right? And the idea behind that is not the thing behind that is not allowing them to enjoy this journey with the Lord by themselves, or enjoying their personal journey with the Lord. The church tends to force them into a space and call them something that the Lord never called them. Oh, just because you sold drugs, you're gonna be the best deacon. No. This doesn't make sense. So now you have somebody trying to show up and live under the pressure of something that the Lord never called them. So
So,
therefore, it's time for them to show up. They don't know who to show up as.
so how do you figure this out?
What do you mean? Like,
What did I say? Bishop, come on now.
I'm just saying, like, what do you mean? How do you figure it out?
This whole issue of who are you versus who were you told you were going to be versus somebody laid their hands on you and said you will be versus in the quiet night hours you heard this voice say This is what I want you to do. It's almost like you flip a coin. Heads, I'm going to listen to the little voice. B, I'm going to listen to the man who put his hands on me.
Two things though, like two things. We This should have been a private conversation. The thing, Dr. Mason, is that we have to again let people enjoy their journey with the Lord, right? Every one of Jesus' disciples enjoyed their journey with the Lord, right? And that journey that they had with Jesus was their own personal journey. It had nothing to do with Judas's journey and Matthew's journey. Like, they didn't compare journeys, they had their own journey, right? And we have to allow men, and not just men, but everybody, to have their own personal journey. The question that you just asked is that how do we do this, or how do you contend with the voice you heard in the still of the night versus the voice that's laying hands on you? My question would be, whose voice did you hear in the middle of the night? Because again, we have a group of people, a certain group of people, that don't know the voice of the Lord, right? And they're living in delusion, and they're living in fantasy land. So now, are you delusional? Because, so again, it goes back to identity. Are you delusional because you've been comparing yourself to someone else, or you've been just out here in this world living in a fantasy? The thing is, like, we have to have these conversations, right, in safe spaces where we say, "No, doc, you crazy." Right? Or that is not your seat. Right. And the tension comes when you have this conversation, and I've done it before, but God's still good, with individuals, and tell them, no, that's not your call. Right. And having that conversation with someone and saying that's not your call, it- because of the oversight that the Lord has allowed me to sit in the seat to be their pastor, I can have that conversation with them because the space is safe. Right. And I can say, no, that's not the Lord. What I need you to do is I need you to return. Right. And I need you, I need you to talk to him again, because that's not it. Right. And that comes from creating safe spaces. And when you create safe spaces, just like the gangs and just like the LBGTQIA plus community, they create safe spaces where they can come and have conversations with those who they disciple, and they win their trust, and they put them in positions based on their character traits. Right. You work as this person before you become this person, and they allow them to go through the process or the chain of command where they grow into becoming at least the head guy on the block. Right. So it's all about creating safe spaces and allowing people to learn who they are through the journey, through their journey with the Lord. Right. And I feel like we've robbed people of that beauty of having that experience.
So what do we do?
What do you mean? What do we do?
See, here, when it comes to the drug dealers, and I'm glad you used that example, because I love that example. When it comes to the drug dealers, we do a great job. Structure, message, reinforcement, rewards, upward mobility, increased responsibility according to who they have defined that you are. All of those things are there. I
Mhm.
would hazard this to say, in my experience, it's not always the case in the church where there has been clarity of message, clarity of progression.
So now my question to you is, why is there is where why you've been part of the church longer than I have, right? Why isn't there clarity? Right? Why isn't there precision? Why isn't all of these things that should be laid out? Why aren't these things in operation within the confinements of the church? And um, for the sake of time, right? I just want you to think of
all week long.
I thought you said all night. I ain't got but 29 more minutes in me, bro. But but for the sake of for the sake of this, like you've been part of mega ministries, you've been part of startup ministries, you've been from both of these extremes and everything in the middle. So where is the breakdown coming at when you're looking at the structure of the church?
I think that you put this, and that's a great question. I think that's an absolutely great question. I think the first part is the ministry identifying ministry in you and placing you into the place where your ministry gifting and ministry calling can be used. I think that's one of the first things. Number two, there is no agreement in often in leadership as to how there is going to be this identification and, as Coach K just said, training.
Hmm.
There's also, and Lord, this was so true in the mega church that I was a part of. When I tell you that there was jealousy running rampant, so you were never going to get above me or outdo me. So there was almost internal sabotage, which has nothing to do with God, it has everything to do with people being people, which is a whole nother issue.
What do you mean by has nothing to do with God? Like, explain.
God doesn't sabotage.
He doesn't sabotage. But you said that that was an internal, or this jealousy monster, right?
Correct.
Um, who wanted or made people, or say that you said it. Say it again. I don't want.
Sabotage people
Right.
instead of assisting them. Honestly, I have no problems training anybody anywhere, anytime.
Hmm.
That's fun to me. I enjoy it. I love it.
Hmm.
I love it. That's what I love doing. There were people who I have met who would withhold their knowledge because I had not gone through the steps that they believed that I should go through before they spoke to me.
So they withheld their knowledge from you
Yes,
as an attempt to make you fail.
as an attempt to make me follow a script that they wrote.
So they wanted you to be part of.
Their clique, their group, their clan.
Hmm. So how did you get around that though?
I left.
Why'd you leave?
Honestly, I did not, could not, would not sit and watch somebody tell me I had to hop on one foot and bark like a dog.
Coming to
I
me.
wasn't doing it. I'm so sorry. I simply was not doing it.
But
And
that was the culture of the place that you were at, right?
it
And
was.
again, like you've been from, like, hearing your story, you've been from one end to the other end and all in between. And the question is, how do we address that in a healthy space?
Now, here comes the fun part that I can absolutely defer to those who have pastored churches and set up ministries and ministers.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I haven't done. I've served, but I have not gone into that level. So I have to defer to you
Okay. Well,
because not only have you seen the needs, absolutely, Darius J, you know better. She's my queen to be. Anyway, um, not only have you seen the needs of the congregants, but you had to go to the Lord and say, God, how in the world will these needs be met? You then had to put together a structure that met the needs of the people to not only make them grow, but also allow them to have their gifts make room for them.
that's shepherding 101, right? Because it's it's one of the things where um we use the narrative that the pastor is the shepherd of the house, etc., so forth and so on, blah 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 blah. He's leading the people, or she's leading the people, yada yada, so forth and so on, right? In that conversation piece, we tend to forget that no two sheep are the same, just like no two individuals are the same,
Mm-hmm.
right? What it takes for one, it may not take for the other, right? And we create some churches have created this hierarchy where you have to be on this level, you have to report to this person, which, don't get me wrong, structure is needed in the confinements of the church. However, when you are placing people in these spaces, you have to look at who the individual is, and you have to know who's among you, right?
Right.
And in that space of knowing who's among you, you have to be able to say, you know what, it's a seed of pride in your heart, and that's not for you. Come sit down, right? Um, and we, for so long, have put people in spaces because we feel that we need individuals in those spaces, and we feel that, like, if we let them operate in this space, it'll help with their salvation. But if there is no work on the backside of what they're doing in ministry to walk them through the process, this is why you have these spaces where you call them like sabotaging saints. Because as a leader, there is no way that you don't know what you have in your house, unless the Lord never called you to that space.
Whoa. So I have to go backwards before I can go forward. So is Shepherding 101 an optional course?
It is. Everything that we do is optional. We we are we are free agents in this world. Everything that we do is
Oh,
optional.
wow.
And the beauty about it, right? And this is I was talking to um a young lady one time, and she was married to a pastor. Her husband passed away. Her mom is an apostle, so forth and so on. And she talked about the stress and the nuances of pastoralship. And this is our conversation. And she was like, "How do you manage doing said things?" And my response to her, if it's not hard if you do it God's way,
Right.
right? It's not it's not daunting. It's not a task if you do it God's way. And I just was sharing with someone else last night. I am not the pastor that you can call at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm not him. And reviving generations know I'm not him. I'm not. I- and they're okay. I'm not him. Like,
Ooh,
I don't have the
ooh.
capacity, and I don't have the need to want to be that important that you call me at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm not that guy. Well, the Saints need somebody. 911, three numbers, right? Because there's nothing that I can do at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Ooh.
There's nothing. Well, Pastor, you can pray when I wake up. We'll do that, right? And I know this older pastor. He was like 89 years old. He said these words. He was like, "Son, you are not the funeral home. You are not the EMT. You are not the hospital, and you are not the police or the fire department. Turn your phone off and get your rest because you're going to need your strength for the next day." Right? And reviving generations know that. Like people that are watching is like, "Oh, that is horrible. You're not part of reviving generation, so you wouldn't understand." And I'm okay with that. Right? So that space of allowing yourself the liberty to be who the Lord called you to be and sit in a space where the Lord sends to you people that are assigned to your voice,
Mhm.
gives you the gives you the task of making it look effortless. Like you say, we make it look good.
Mhm.
We don't we don't make it look good. We just following him. We're following him. When think about this, right? Here we go. For people who's like, you wrong. You think about this. When Mary and Martha sent word to Jesus and say, your homeboy sick, he gonna die. Jesus wasn't in no hurry.
None at all.
He was not in a hurry to get there just because of the proximity of relationship. And people will use that against you within the confinements of the church. You know what? I served when you called and I did. And people will try to use that against you because of the relationship that you built with them. No, bro.
Mhm.
That never worked with me anyway, because go team. But you know, but those things, like, we have to understand that, like, as leaders, um and since we're talking about pastors, we'll talk to leaders for a moment. Like, as leaders, you have to understand your capacity and you have to know who you are. You cannot pastor well and you don't know who you are. You cannot pastor well if you are not healed within yourself. Like, those are spaces that you have to confront in order to be a healthy pastor or a healthy leader. Not just a pastor, but the CEO of a company, the manager of whatever, the VP. Like, all of those spaces, it's not just in the confinements of the church. You have to learn who you are so that you can be healthy in the marketplace. And because you can tell when you start talking to your manager, your supervisor, your boss, whomever in the company that you report to, you can tell that they're unhealthy how they respond to certain situations.
Mhm.
You can tell. And
Mhm.
it's the same within the confinements of the church. We have to learn how to heal. We have to learn who we are, because until we find out who we are, we'll forever be competing for a space. We'll forever be competing to, I need this position so that I can be here. And we're looking for those spaces for status. We're looking for those spaces for status so that we can say that we've been successful. But my question is, uh, to the World Wide Web is like, you, not even a question, but a statement. You can't measure your success based on your status. Your success is based on your obedience.
Right.
And it's not just the church, right? This is universal. This is across the lines. Have you been obedient into the things that you were designed to do, right? and walked in that space of obedience. That's how you measure your success, if you obeyed him.
Mm, mm, mm. Now, Bishop, we get into that critical point in the conversation where I have to set you up so that you can be you. You said a whole lot tonight. You taught a whole lot. Some that may be both new and uncomfortable for folks because they've never heard it before. Because they have believed from day one that if you call your pastor, they're supposed to answer.
No,
If you invite your pastor over at 4 o'clock in the morning, they're supposed to come.
no.
They believe that as soon as you bring yourself to a church, they're supposed to find out where you're supposed to be in the church. And from that point on, you should have a beautiful roadmap, almost as if you were in corporate America. And you not only had an onboarding document, but you also had a progression plan. And what I've heard you say is some of that will be given to you, but some of that will be between you and the Father. That you will begin to craft in your time alone as you begin to hear and as you begin to grow in Him, as you begin to sharpen your identity so that you know exactly not only who you are, but how you will operate in that space. Because I think that that's the one point that, knowing you is so refreshing because most folks have never met a pastor like you.
They probably never will. But
They've never met a pastor
this,
like
this is the
you.
thing, though. Like, Doc, here's the other thing. Jesus handpicked 12, right? Did he leave me out here by myself? Oh, we'll wait till he come back because I want to talk to him.
I'm right here. I'm just giving you a solo moment.
I don't need no solo moment. I'm talking to you.
But
I
it
don't
looks good on camera.
need no monologue. See, that's
But
what's
it
wrong.
looks good.
That's what's wrong with the church. They going on what looks good instead of what we got going on in the room.
Oh Lord, here
Boom.
we go.
Prime example.
Wow.
You gonna make me forget what I was going to say. Um, I was saying Jesus picks 12, right? Jesus picks 12,
Yes.
right? And the 12 that he chose, right? They were all from different backgrounds.
Right.
Their journey with him, and I'm gonna keep going back to this. Their journey with him was the same and different at the same time,
Okay.
right? They found out through their working with him how to go from being fishermen of fish to being fishermen of men. Their progression in the 3 years that they spent with him was a beautiful plan that we don't have or display within the confinements of the church because we don't make disciples, we make carbon copies.
Ooh.
And that's the issue. He didn't just teach them, he taught them life, right? When they asked him to teach us how to pray, that conversation of teaching us how to pray wasn't because they didn't know how to pray. It was because they saw something that he did, not
Mm.
something that he told them about. You got me on another device because I hear echo. But they heard about prayer, they heard the teachings of prayer, so forth and so on, all those different things. But when they saw the demonstration thereof, they wanted more. And we don't have the the space to see the demonstration, to ask for more. This is what made them great disciples, right? This is what made them uh, be in a place where they can do the work. They weren't doing the work for themselves. They were doing the work for the kingdom. They weren't just opening the church on Sundays and having conferences at the conference, at the conference, at the conference, at the conference because they didn't want to work. They had money, right? So when you have these places where you have leaders who are in positions and they don't allow who they're discipling to enjoy the journey, to actually make disciples versus carbon copies, then you have spaces where you have sabotaging moments. You have spaces where you have people that say, um, um, that's my mama, that's my pops, right? Because they're attached to them based on their needs and their need to make them a carbon copy of them and not a disciple. The disciples never called Jesus they dad, they pops, ever. There's no record in the book for them to say, Pops, let me ask you a question. I'm sorry.
You're not sorry.
Sorry.
You're not sorry. Not the least bit. You, however, have come to a point that I've got to hit before we got to go. And I'm going to give you the last say, the call to action to the folks, just so you know. That's coming.
What does that even look like? Okay.
That looks like if you had one say to these people, what say would you say?
Okay.
That's what that says.
Man.
You've done it a million times. Um, you really have. So my question to you is simple in this space. If we are manifesting, demonstrating, and making law all of these things that Jesus never thought about, wasn't about, couldn't see, didn't want to see, and the 12, the 3, the 12, the 70, or the 120 never took that into consideration, never wanted to do that, never said, okay, Jesus, I want to be a son of the ministry, so I can go ahead and get my nice little robe embroidered with son on the back, and everybody knows who I'm a part of. If that is all something that Jesus never demonstrated, what does discipleship actually look like?
Like what he demonstrated. It looks like what he demonstrated. Here we go. Once again, we have a group of a group of people who don't know who they are, right? Never took the time to find out who they are, and um, they go into spaces where they require validation. You've seen it time and time, y'all, and most of y'all have seen it as well. Is that you have what I call angry pastors who are always screaming, or angry prophets who are always screaming. And in those spaces where you have those individuals, they're looking for validation. And especially those who are married, like if their spouse doesn't validate them at home, it shows up at church. So therefore, we have the control narrative in those spaces. So now they're not modeling what Jesus laid before us to model. They're modeling what their desire is to have at home. So they're grasping for validation. This is why I have the son. This is why I have the daughter. All of these people and tell them that this is who you are. And because of my position, everyone else outside of our circle is looking in awe and they want to be part of the inner circle. And those that are looking in don't realize that the Lord is saving your life for not allowing you to be in the inner circle. So if I had to leave people with a word, right, it'll be two. Find out who you are. Find out who you are on this journey, right? And finding yourself in this journey is finding yourself in Him. When you find God, I guarantee you, when you find Him, you will find out who you are, right? And not only finding yourself, but find your people. Every the the children of Israel was a huge nation made of 12 tribes, and every tribe had their own person, right? Every person had their own tribe. It wasn't like that for segregation reasons, but it was like that for people that understood who you are, right? So find your people, find your tribe, and stop trying to make people love you. The thing is, when you don't know who you are, you tend to try to make people love you, and you will never find love if you're trying to make somebody love someone that you don't even know who you are, so they don't know who to love. But I'm done. The end. I gave you your time back.
Woo! Mm. Mm. So, Bishop,
Mm.
thank you. That's what
You
I tell you. This is rough right here. This is some rough sledding. Not because you're saying anything that's so controversial, but when you put it so simply, what it says to me is, why don't you find out what the word says and what the man did instead of following what man told you he did and what man wants you to do?
Mhm.
Because if we do that and we're obedient both to the word and to his pattern, I think that we're going to be in a very different place, but we're going to be all right. We're going to be all right. So, tomorrow, can I tell them what's coming?
I don't even know what's coming, but sure, tell them. Yeah, go team.
Tomorrow, I'm going to let this man begin probably what's going to take us 2 nights to unpack. And that is David, the cave, and his mighty man. I
They
don't know that we're going to be able to unpack that in one night, and I'm not even going to think that we are. But as it relates to mind, body, soul, and spirit, David, his mighty men, and the cave is going to hit some stuff that you don't want to miss. I'm going to tell you that right now. You do not want to miss it. And by the way, and here's the my adapted saying. Um, my adopted saying for this, because I'm finding out that this is targeted towards men, but also towards the women who love them. Because, as you have said so clearly, it's not just, and I do mean not just for men, this is for the body. This is good, strong stuff for the body. And if y'all are listening and if y'all are following, I'm telling you, tell your friends, go get some other folk, because when he comes and unpacks this, and I sort of heard what I call a precursor as to where he's gonna go a little bit. He just scratched the surface.
I don't even know where I'm going, but we gonna go somewhere.
Just a little bit, just a little bit. But as it relates to this, I know that you do not want to miss it at all, at all, at all. You don't want to miss it. So again, Bishop, thank you so much
Thank
for giving of yourself and giving up your sleep. I know how hard that is. Lord knows I know how hard that is.
you. Listen, I almost missed you. I'm telling you, I almost missed you. If I had not set the alarm, I would have been apologizing for leaving you out here by yourself. But
And that's all right because you know good and well, dealing with you as long as I have, I always got a plan B. I will put up that thing that says technical difficulties in a heartbeat.
because again, I'm that pastor that will be asleep. Now listen,
And
yeah,
Pastor Jay was asleep in the boat, and we
listen,
couldn't find him, and we couldn't wake him up, and the storm turned the boat over, and he walked on the water and went on into the next. Anyway,
yeah.
y'all, tomorrow's gonna be epic. Go ahead and get somebody and bring them on. Until tomorrow,
Can I say something?
of course.
So I just received something in the mail today that I feel that will be great for leaders, especially those who are building. Right, it is here. Oh, I can't even see it. Hold on, I'm gonna fix this. It is here. Sandy Foundations. Right, y'all go. I'm gonna send you the link, Dr. Mason, where they can
Mhm.
purchase it. It is a great read, especially for those who are building. My pastor wrote this book, and it talks about building on sandy foundations. So, seeing that we're talking about that, this will be a great read for leaders. It'll be a great read for men. So, y'all check it out. It's a good. I read it before it hit the press, but it's good. So,
So tomorrow you will tell us how to get it.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. All right, y'all. 9 o'clock tomorrow. We are going to be on sharp. It's going to be great. David, his mighty men, and the cave is where we're going. Mind, soul, body, spirit, dealing with without question, shifting your temple, shifting your temple. And all of it's going to come together by Friday. I promise you. It's going to be great. It's going to be absolutely great. For all of the GFT folks, all of the men's department folks, thank you so much for always having my back. I appreciate you more than you know. Again, tell your folks, go on out to Purpose Refined by Fire on Facebook and tell them good folks. Oh, yeah, it is. I keep forgetting y'all all across the country. I apologize, Kayla. I'm sorry.
Who
8 o'clock Central. 8 o'clock Central. You showed up right. So, anyways, we gonna see everybody tomorrow, 9 or 8. Just be here in the space. And until then, again, I need you to make sure that you decide, declare, and defend what God has put inside of you. See you tomorrow.
We all want to be happy, but the majority of us have no idea what to do. See, the Japanese have a concept called ikigai, which roughly translates into a reason for being. You need to have a purpose for being here, but this is easier said than done because there are 4 components that you need to check off in order to achieve ikigai. Now, the interesting thing about this Japanese formula is that you can tell where you are in life and what you need to work on by looking at the components you have so far. If all you have is something that you love and are good at, then you have what's called a passion. On the other hand, if you have something that you love and you can see how the world needs it, then you have what's what's called a mission. Now, if you're someone who has something you get paid well for and are good at, then you have what most people in the world have, which is a profession. And finally, if you get paid well and it's something that you know can help the world, then you have what's called a vocation. You need to be spending your time doing something that you love, that you can get better at, that pays well, and that the world needs. Without all four, you will always feel like you're missing something inside of you.
Follow us for more helpful tips.